Good morning. Welcome to the Canmore Local Assessment Review Board hearing. We are here today to review the complaint and subsequent evidence is filed for tax roll 20498. The municipal address is Unit 304, 600 Spring Creek Drive. My name is Martin Buckley. I'm a long-term resident of Canmore, and I will be chairing the meeting today, the presiding officer. And I'll ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with the person on the right.
Good morning. My name's Andrea Williams.
Good morning. My name's Esme Comfort. I am a town councillor, and a 40-year resident of the town of Canmore. Sorry, 30-year. Just celebrated my 40th wedding anniversary, so that's why I got confused.
Is there anyone present who objects to any of these panel members? No objections heard. Thank you very much. Thank you. I will ask the parties to step forward to the microphone. We have to have you talk into the microphone, otherwise things are not going to be live streamed. So if you could please come forward, I would ask you to introduce themselves, starting with the complainant. Yeah. We'd ask that you state your name and your role in the hearing and indicate whether you, well, I guess we know you are the owner of the property. Is that correct?
Sorry, would you say that again?
You are the owner of the property, I guess.
Yes, my name is Gary Zatko, the owner of Unit 304 on Moraine Ridge, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Start?
That's it.
And I'm Kelly Larson with Equitable Assessment Group.
Okay, thank you.
Do it a little lower because I'm so tall. Certainly.
And the members of administration?
I'm Megan Dalrymple, and I'll be the clerk for today.
Thank you.
I'm Janae Shepard. I am also an Assessment Review Board clerk today.
Thank you. So the Local Assessment Review Board standard practice is to have the complainant present all of its evidence first, followed by questions from the respondent, and then the panel. Next, the respondent, Ms. Larson, will present her evidence, followed again by questions from the complainant and then the panel. Then the complainant has a chance for rebuttal. And finally, both parties have an opportunity to present their final arguments and summarize their evidence for the panel. We've received the evidence. I think we should just go through it first to make sure everything is here. From the complainant, we received the complaint itself and an accompanying letter of 2 pages. We then received the complainant's disclosure, which is 6 pages long. That is item C1B. And then we have the residential assessment complaint form C2A, and it is, I don't have it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long.
Yes.
And then finally, we have the sales comparables provided by the complainant, and there are 4 pages there.
That was supplied by the appraiser.
Oh, that was supplied by the assessor.
The 18 was supplied by, right. The 18 comparables that you're referring to, Mr. Chairman?
That's correct.
That was provided by the appraiser.
But it's part of your submission, is it not?
But that was also part of my submission.
Okay, so that makes it your evidence, and it is C2B.
Pardon me?
That makes it your evidence, and it's C2B.
Sure.
Okay.
Accept that.
Okay. Then on the respondents, we have a document 4 pages long, the respondent's submission, and that's labeled as R1. Is that correct, Ms. Larson?
Yes, that is.
Yes? Okay, thank you. And at any time, if anyone needs a break or a problem comes up, please let the panel know as soon as possible, and we'll address those things. Any questions regarding procedure today?
On his first submission, I just have a question. I only have 1 page that was emailed to me on the first submission.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
I have the
thought you said
complaint
the
itself
complaint
and
form. Not in the complaint. after the complaint, there was a submission.
Yes, a letter backside. It's addressed as 2019 residential assessment complaint.
No, that one. Oh, okay. I thought you
That
said that
one.
was 4 pages, so
I was asking about this one that was signed, that accompanied the complaint.
We had labeled C1A, and that's a complaint form, which was accompanied by one letter.
Yes.
That was 2 pages. And then there was C1B, which was the original, one page.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was 4 pages.
So we're clear on everything then, are we? Very good. So no further questions on procedure. Everybody's happy with everything? We're ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready to go, Kelly? Are you ready? Yeah.
Okay. Any other preliminary issues to be addressed? Hearing none. Mr. Zatko, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hearing my submission, and thanks to Kelly and the town for all the work you've done. I appreciate it. I'm going to be referring to my September 5th document primarily, which is a 6-page document that I provided in response to the September 3rd response of the appraiser. So do you have the members secure that document? Thank you.
Yes, that's document C1B, I believe.
Well, I'm not sure, Mr.
The September 5th was C2A.
This is the document I'm referring to.
C2A.
C2A, I think we labeled it.
That is the one.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
These sides.
So I have 4 points to make, and then I'll refer you to sections within the September 5th document just to elaborate on those points. The first point, well, first of all, the context. If you look at the first page on September 5th document, just to give you the context for Moraine Ridge and the basis of this submission, the property was assessed in $595,000 in 2017 and $600,600 in 2018. That's the appraisal valuation. The town proposed an assessment for 2019 of $660,700, an increase of 10%. As I understand it, the basis for property assessments is the market value, which means the amount that a property might be expected to realize if it was sold on the open market by a willing seller to a willing buyer. That's the premise of all market value and assessment procedures in the province of Alberta. The proposed assessment, it's our contention, does not reflect the market conditions for Unit 3004 as of July 1st, 2018. We are requesting a 2% increase in the assessment value of $612,000 and $600. $612,600. There are 3 reasons for this. The first reason, and I'm just going to speak to the 3 reasons with potentially a 4th one, and then refer you to the document just to guide you through it a bit, because it's perhaps a little verby. The basic concern we have is applying a mass appraisal 10% increase guideline for Moraine Ridge. While this increase may be appropriate for the euphoria of price increases in the town of Alberta, in town of Canmore, it doesn't reflect the depressed market value on properties like Moraine Ridge, which is only for occupants 40 years and over. This restriction was applied by the province of Alberta. It lasts until 2032. There's absolutely no appetite by members, by occupants in Moraine Ridge to change that age restriction. CMHC, others, brokers, bankers, are age-restricted condo buildings with some, it's a higher risk. If it goes belly up, it's harder to sell. CMHC estimates there are about 50% fewer buyers in the marketplace for condos which are age-restricted 40 plus and over. That's occupants, owners, and renters. We have asked in several submissions to the town, what is their reason, given that market perception, for applying 10% increase in assessment values as the starting point to determine assessment values and mill rates in the town of Canmore. We have not got a reason from the town why they would be applying that 10% guideline to an age-restricted building. That's point number one. Point number two, sales data for units 205 and unit 111, which was provided in a separate document that went from the appraisal to Ron Hunka of Moraine Ridge, demonstrates that the increase in sales value from one year to the next, where there is sales data over time, it's a 2% increase in the sales price of those units in Moraine Ridge, not 10%. That's where sales data is available to us. We maintain that this 2% should be applied to Unit 304 as it makes sense to us as our understanding of the marketplace. The third point is that the 2018 comparables provided to me by the appraiser had 18 comparables from 2015 to 2018. The contention in the documents is that units 205 and units 307 are comparable units to unit 304, which is the unit under contention here. They are not the same. Units 205 and 304, the appraiser is wrong. They are not on the same floor. It is a tiered building, 432. Unit 307 is on the top floor. It has access to Policeman's Creek, has unobstructed views of the mountains. There is no street traffic. It is a premier unit in Moraine Ridge. Unit 209 is also on the top floor. Also unobstructed views of the mountains. No street traffic. No adjacency to Origins. It is a premier unit, and Unit 304 is not. Given these standard conditions for determining market value of similar units in a building is standard, as I said, and should be applied when determining market values of any unit sold anywhere. Those are the three main points that I like to make, and I'll go to a little bit of detail on some of them. The fourth point, which I will only get into if time permits and circumstances permit, on the overall process of appraisal setting in the town of Canmore. But, you know, if time permits and circumstances permit, that's fine. The key question, I think, for the panel is what is the assessment valuation that you are going to determine that is correct for Unit 304. That's the primary purpose of the meeting. I would like to go to page 3 of my submission, if I may. And I'd like to look at background point 4. This is point number 1, the mass appraisal 10% assessment increase that the town of Canmore has engaged to be applied across all units in Canmore. Again, this may apply to single-family dwellings. It may apply to tourist-zoned condos, which sell out like crazy, as you probably know, because it had decided advantages to the owner to rent or live in. They drive up the price dramatically. This does not apply to Moraine Ridge. There are fewer sales over the years. CMHC won't lend on these units in certain circumstances. Mortgage brokers cannot get preferred mortgage rates because banks see these as very difficult to sell. So for these reasons, we do not understand how a market-sensitive approach to setting assessment values can be used with really a sledgehammer in terms of mass appraisal approaches. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I'd like to look at page 3 as well. That talks about, in the 18 comparables provided by the assessor, she said they're basically comparable units. They're the best comparable units to Unit 204. And it's a lot of work, Kelly, so congratulations on digging all this up. It's not fun, I'm sure. So Unit 307 and 209 compared to 304, I have a number of bullet points in case someone doesn't get what I'm saying. Unit 307 and 209 are on the top floor. Those units sell more than units that are not on the top floor. 307 and 209 have unobstructed views of mountains. That's why people come here. They don't come here to buy a unit to look at origin. Adjacency to creekside views. Complete views of the mountains and Policeman's Creek. We have a view of Origins Creek. It's not the same. Very nice people, but it's not the mountains. Street traffic. Have units 307 and 209 do not have any. 304 has it on the side and on the front. And again, I've already mentioned we have access to, we see Origin across the way, about 40 feet away. The last point on the comparables is Unit 307 sold with all the furniture. So this is a gross application of the 10% guideline to a unit, to a building, where the appraiser is saying, because all the units are in the same building, they're basically all the same, and we're saying they're not. But maybe she had a misinterpretation of it. Maybe she didn't visit Moraine Ridge. Maybe she wasn't sure of the configuration of the units and the different variables that affect the value of 307, and I do not falter for that. There's just a lot of work to do here. Those are my first 2 points. The third point deals on page 2, point C. Is everybody following me? Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes? I think so. I didn't know if that look was puzzlement or disagreement. But anyway, carrying on.
Try to be neutral.
All right. This is a good example of my concern. The issues, I'm going to read parts of this because I think it's important for you to understand where we're coming from. The issues with the overall approach are illustrated by the recent sale of 205 in early 2019. The MGA says we should use sales and data from 2018 to reflect market conditions as of July 1st, 2019. I am bringing in Unit 2019, Unit 205, the sale, as it was placed in a document that the appraiser provided to Ron Hunka, my neighbor in Marine Ridge. So let's look at this. This is a larger unit by 304 by 109 square feet. It was sold in early 2019 for $625. It was listed for some 1.5 years at $649,000, but sold for $625 in early 2019. In 2018, the assessment value established by the town was $698,000. In 2019, the town increased the assessment value to $768,000. These values represent a 15% increase over the sales price of $605,000 in 2017 and 22% over sales price of $625,000 in 2019. It is clear to me that the assessment valuations do not reflect market values. This data is unambiguous. The town recently reduced, thanks to Ron Hunka sharing this with me, the assessment value of Unit 205 to $630,000 assessment valuation, which is $449.67 per square foot. Unit 205 is a valid comparison to Unit 304. Using this data, the assessment value based on the sales price of $625, the size of that unit, and the size of 304, the assessment value should be $585,000. The increase in sales price is about 3% over 2 years, or about 1.5% per year since 2017. This does not compare at all to the 10% increase in assessment value. It's not even close. The problem with applying a 10% mass assessment criteria to all buildings as if they were the same is totally not in keeping with establishing market value for units anywhere in Alberta and then working backwards to the assessment value. So what we have here is application of a 10% increase in assessment value. And what it appears to be is working backwards to see how things will work out, to sort of make that 10% seem reasonable. Now, I'm not implying anything malevolent here. I'm just saying when I look at the data, that's what it shows me. 10% assessment value, and then I'll kind of work backwards. Let me give you some examples. You use a blanket 10% increase, and when you look at the data, and I have more here, you go on forever. I am not the expert. The appraiser is the expert, so forgive me if I'm way off on some of this stuff. But when you look at all the machinations, I looked at the poll data, thank you very much, from the town of Canmore, where appraisers, the appraisal value, the assessment values are made known to the public. Thank you very much for that. I use that data to compare stuff. All cases, all 45 units in Marine Ridge, it starts off with a 10% increase in assessment values of 10% increase in assessment valuations in Marine Ridge from 2018 to 2019. That's the way it starts. And then the model kicks in. So we have terms like Sales. Sale is a sale. Like it. Adjusted sales. Adjusted sales are adjusted in Moraine Ridge anywhere in the same year, 2017, from $3,900 over sales price to $163,000 over sales price. What is going on? That's not standardization to me. The other thing that happens then is estimated value. What's estimated value? Sales price, data sales price, adjusted sales price, estimated value sales price, adjustments for land, and the adjustments keep going on and on. The data that's provided with the morass of all of these definitions, you get adjustments, you get square footage estimates based on adjusted sales. All sales are adjusted up because the assessment started with a 10% increase. They're not going to go down. They're going to go up, clearly. And since there are so few sales, it's really, really difficult for everyone to get a handle on this. So, those are the 4 key points that I'd like to make. I've given you the data for 2005. On page 5, and I'm sorry, this is the last little flip I'm going to ask you to do, okay? It's September 3rd at the very bottom, point before point 7. In Unit 11, 111, in 2000, it's not here, it's in the document provided by the appraisers, and I apologize. And she can confirm that these are the numbers, or I can give you Ron Hunka's document that she provided to him. The sales price for Unit 111 in 2016 was $710,000. The sales price for Unit 111 in 2017 was $729,000, 2.7% increase. Okay, Moraine Ridge is for us older people. It's not going to increase as fast as, tourist condos. It's not going to increase as fast as single-family homes. 2% is what's actually happening. What is not happening is assessment increasing at 10% and then rolling all that out to what appears to be reverse engineering, although I know she's not doing that. But it really does appear to be that way. And the lack of standardization and explanation why adjusted sale prices go anywhere from $3,900 to $163,000 over sales price, and why assessment values can increase up to $178,000 over the adjusted sale price or estimated value. I have other points in the document. I think that summarizes really the key points I have to make, unless you have some questions.
So that concludes your presentation, Mr. Zatko?
Page 5, September 3rd. The first point should be changed. The first point, September 3rd document provided to me by the appraiser does not include the sales from Unit 205. Does not. So it's a significant breach of data in that particular document. It was not included to me. I got it from another document from another homeowner. Yes?
Sorry, maybe I'm looking at the wrong document. It says, does not include the sales from Unit 209.
It should be 205. I made an error.
No.
Okay.
And The other is the third point. The appraisal indicates the median value, blah, 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 blah. These units are not on the same floor in our premium units as outlined in point 5. And I did go through point 5 with you in detail about market value, top floor, Policeman Creek's View, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, and in reading the MGA and provincial documents, of course, it indicates that we have a right to know how things are done, that they were done fairly. I'm fully prepared to pay my fair share of taxes. I'm not resisting that at all. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask you to stay at the mic. There may be questions from the members. Esme, you
Not at this
question?
time, no.
Not this time. Andrea?
Yes, my only question was, is it your argument or your evidence that Unit 205 is the most comparable?
I'm sorry.
Is Unit 205, in your opinion, the most comparable?
Yes,
Piece of evidence? Okay, thank you.
yes. It has the same direction at Origins Creek. We do street traffic. We do not have access to Policeman's Creek, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, Mr. Zatko. I'll start with C1A, which is your complaint and the letter attached to the back of it. And on the back of it, you indicate requests were submitted for data upon which the assessment was made on, and then you list 3 bullets, April 5th, April 11th, April 24th. I'm a little uncertain. Did you receive all the information you requested, or were parts of it missing?
I requested information
Yes.
from the appraiser, and we never received a response until September. We requested a response for comparables. I'm sure they were busy. They did not get back with response to me, and I believe, I forget what date it was sent back, but the comparables that Kelly used to set up the assessment valuations were then submitted to me. Does that answer your?
Well, you've got timelines here, within 24 to 48 hours, the next 5 business days, the next 3 to 4 business days. Did you receive the information in a timely fashion, I guess is the question.
The time,
Was all the information you requested on those 3 dates received in a timely fashion? Did you get the information you asked for?
it was late. One was late in coming, but she had a lot of work to do. So
But it was complete.
it was complete, except for the answer to the 40% mass appraisal criteria. That was never answered in any of them.
Okay, thank you on that one. Throughout your document, C1B, your disclosure document of 6 pages, you make reference to assessor and appraiser.
Both the same.
They're both the same. Okay, and you mentioned Ron Hunka. He's a neighbor. He's not a professional appraiser.
No, he's
Okay.
just my neighbor.
Okay.
And we've been talking to each other about this process, and I shared Kelly's submission to me, and he shared Kelly's submission with me.
Okay. It was kind of confusing. For example, on page
I know.
3.5, you've got the assessor's contention was the 2 sales in 2018 used by the appraiser were most comparable. So it's.
I'm sorry about.
If we understand
They're both the
that-
same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. The final question I have is that I'm going back to C1B, the complaint disclosure. The first page, you note condominiums with restrictions such as the one in place at Moraine Ridge do not appreciate in value at the same rate as broader real estate values, and certainly not at the rate increased by reflected in the Canmore market. A little further on that same page, you've got under downward pressure on age-restricted properties, you've got 3 bullets. Condominiums with age restrictions typically take longer to sell, placing downward pressure on sales prices. And then the third bullet, mortgage providers treat lending to owners in age-restricted condominiums with caution, often limiting their exposure by only offering higher interest rates or declining mortgages altogether. I appreciate those comments. I don't see any footnoting or referencing of materials, of documents where these statements came from.
They're from CMHC statements and various condo associations. I don't have the source here.
Okay.
I work for CMHC.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate that. Just checking here. I believe that's the extent of my questions for now. Thank you very much. No further questions? Okay, thank you. And of course, you'll have a chance after Ms. Larson is done to rebut her comments. Okay. All right. Ms. Larson, did you have any questions?
I guess I did have some questions.
I'll ask you to come to the mic. Thank you.
Gary had referred to like on his first page where he requested an assessment of 6/1/12/600, and it's a 2% increase. He referred to that. I just wanted to know where that came from. Was it just, and then later on you would referred later on on one sale? Is that where the 2% came from?
Well,
Mr. Zatko, if you're responding, we'll need you at the microphone to respond so we can get this on live stream and recorded.
It's towards your evaluation of 6/1/12/600. Just wondering where it came from, where that value comes from.
It's 2% over 600,600.
And where did the 2% come from?
Came from the sales of 205 and units 111, which respectively were 3% over 2 years and 2.6% over 1 year, which rounded is about 2%. Not 10%.
I don't have any questions, just statements that I'll refer to in my...
Okay, very good. Thank you. Do we need a break or do we want to continue going? Everybody's fine?
Am I done?
Yes, you're done. Unless you had any more comments, but I think we've asked our questions and we're safe to proceed.
No, it's a difficult process. I remember doing an in-depth study of market appraisal techniques in CMHC and how they apply to across the country and how incredibly scientific they were.
Okay. So you will have the chance for rebuttal after Ms. Larson is done.
And standardized, of
Yeah.
course. And that's why we have a spread of 3,963. You know, bang
Okay.
on in terms of the appraisals manual. Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize for being sarcastic.
No, that's fine. And you're comfortable? No need for a break? You're good? Okay. Ms. Larson, you can proceed.
Thank you.
Oh, then we probably should take a break, or you will be back, will you? Well, you have the opportunity to rebut after Ms. Larson is done.
I'll try and make it as brief as possible so we can get in under the wire.
Is that fine? Are you okay with that, Mr. Zatko? Yes. I just don't want you to lose your opportunity. That's okay. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. As we've all discussed, we all know from my, I'm living my report here has the property information and summary, and you're aware of it. It's at 304 600 Spring Creek. It's a 1,300 square foot property in a 40-plus building. And again, I've listed here a photograph of the building and the assessment, which is also changed over time from $595 to $600,000 to approximately $600,000 to now $660,700. The market values are based on sales within this building, and I provided a table on page 3 And when I say this building, I wanted to be specific that it's only dealing with sales of the 40-plus. I wasn't going outside of that parameter for this documentation. And I had listed here, the above sales are all within the same building and all have the same restrictions. The sales indicate a median value per square foot of $584 on properties on the same floor. Now, having listened to Gary's indication that not necessarily something with the number 3 would indicate it's on the 3rd floor, number 4. So apparently their numbering system is 2 could be on the 1st floor. I was unaware of that. So obviously something to look at there, but their medians were based on that. So the median value of properties of more similar size, so I tried to choose stuff that was in that range, between 1187 to 1398, and I highlighted those, and they were at about 564 a square foot. Now, the properties that sold in 2018, they had the least amount of adjustments, and I know I'll speak more to the adjustments after this, but the adjustments on those ones, there are limited adjustments on those ones because they're all in 2018, so the valuation date of July 1st is closed, so time adjustments towards that is smaller. So I just brought up the actual sale price, and they were $655, $657, and $776. Now, $776 is the sale price that Mr. Zatko had referred to as including furniture. I didn't have that information at the time, so, I mean, and it obviously looks like an outlier in that comparison of that 655, 657, and then obviously furniture, which would probably be, I don't know, whatever the adjustment would be to that. It still would be above the 700,000 mark, I would have to guess, because that property did sell in 2016. If you look 2 lines below, it sold in 2016 for $675,000. So I would hazard to guess that it would be above the $700,000, that sale price there, but that's speculation. But looking at those, that range was $655 of similar. They're a little bit smaller than his. I felt that they were from 2018, that they would be the most relevant, so that I didn't understand why his 612 would fit. It would be far below what those average range prices are from 2018. So if 1,120 square foot, 1,169, and 1,187 can sell for the 655 range to, I'm going to estimate 700,000 range, then I didn't understand why he would feel that his at 1301 would reflect a value of 612. And those aren't adjusted, those prices. Those ones are the ones I'm referring to. We all are aware it's based on market value. He speaks to that, so I don't think I need to speak any further to that. But the adjustments, I think I should speak to. I think that there's been a bit of a misunderstanding on the 10%. When I responded to his emails for requests for information on May 15th, we had discussions with the town and given information out, sales comparables, and then we kind of gave it this is an average of what happened over the town. This is the average town percent. 10% was what the town had received. It wasn't saying that 10% is what everybody received. Some had 7, some had 17. It just happened to be that 10% is the increase in this building, and that was the town average. So I just was wanting him to know that he was following an average, not that this is what we set out. So I think that increase isn't something that we focused on and then worked our way from. In fact, we do sales adjustments. So he had referred to the sales price, and like you can see in that chart on table A on page 3, the sales price, which is the actual sales price. The adjusted sales price is a price that's adjusted by time adjustments for the town on residential properties. They're grouped together, and you find it, and the time adjustments is calculated to what it would be as if it sold on July 1st of 2018. So that's what that adjusted portion is. And the estimated value is a chart that just, it's through our CAMA system, and what it does is it looks at that specific sale, and it values the property, his property, for example, based on that particular sale only, and it spits out that estimated value. It's obviously all over the place because some of these properties are larger or smaller, or, so in those ranges, it can be quite a bit different. Again, which is why we use a median and not averages. But that would speak to some of the adjustments, and I'm sure you might have some questions on those as well. He does refer to, at the beginning of this actual whole thing, when I received my information from Mr. Zatko, I received only the first thing I received was the page 1 document with his submission. The first C2, I guess, like his complaint, and then C2. Is that how it goes, or C1A? Just the one page.
One page is
So
C1A.
that's what I replied to in my response. So his rebuttal isn't part of my response because I don't receive that till 3 days ago, obviously. I get to look at it, but I don't get to submit anything further on it.
That's
So
right.
I'm just speaking to that stuff, if I can. Again, and he mentioned 205 as a sale, that it occurred. And it did occur in March of 2017. The valuation date is in July 1st, 2018. It's adjusted to 668. So through our CAMA system, or mass appraisal system, when it works out its time adjustments, it brings it up to a $668,000 price. That would be for something that's 1,410 square feet in that building. That's what it spits it out as. So that's the value that we used, and it was used in the sales. But of course, I didn't have that till just now, because he thought it was 209, so I didn't have that included in the information. I apologize for that. But that one also sold the previous year for $597.
When you say 597, that's 597,000. That's
Sorry,
not, that's not
597,000.
That's not 597 a square foot.
No, 500, same square footage, same property, 597,000 in 2016.
The previous year being 2017?
16, because that was the one he's comparing to as a most comparable property is a 2017 sale from March. And this sold prior to that in September 16 of 2016 for a similar price of $597. So within 7 months later, it sold again for the 605. He also referred to number 111. Again, it's a property that sold in 2016. As he said, 205 and 111 were the most comparable to him. In 216, 111 sold in 2016, in December of 2016, for $710, and it's a 1,398 square foot property. It then sold again in June 16th, 2017, for $729. And it's 1,398 square feet. So I do have that in there as well. You can see them on the bottom of the table on my page 3 in my submission. It's number 111, 600 Spring Creek Drive, and their roll numbers are 20479, but it's the same sale, or it's the same property sold twice from 2016 to 2017. It's larger than his property, obviously, but those are the ones that I think he said that he felt were most in comparison. I did have a change to a property there. I don't have the complete details on it at this time. It was Unit 205, which I think is the one he's comparing to. And we did make an adjustment on it, but I don't have the exact details. I think I have that it was based on, there was some lack of view, so we had adjusted them downward, and another one for view, adjusted them based on some sales information that we got from him, that it was more comparable to adjust that one downward. But that being said, I talked with Mr. Zatko last year, and as I refer to in here in the documentation, he has a 10% reduction. It actually should have been reduced or removed last year, and then would have been reviewed with everybody else again this year. But he still has a 10% less than everybody else. And I think it was based on last year on the fact that the buildings were, we decided that we should look at them separately. So when I looked at them separately, it still we did that, but I didn't take his 10% off. So he actually has another 10% in comparison to somebody that would be the exact same as him. But from what I understand in this building, there's nobody exactly the same in here. So, but in my opinion, with the sales here, the sales prices ranging anywhere from $655 to roughly $700,000 in 2018 for something that's 200 square feet smaller, and possibly on the same floor. Could be some of these, the one at 209 is one floor above, and the one at 307 is also one floor above, and then the one at 100 Spring Creek Drive, I would have assumed it was on the first floor, but it may not be, but they're in, or at least it could be on the second floor or third floor with him. So I don't think that the valuation that we have on this property is incorrect based on the current sales prices in 2018 and based on the comparables that he refers to at number 111 600 Spring Creek Drive, with those two sales indicating that the 1,390 square foot home in June would sell for $729. So it's my position that the valuation of $600 to $6,700 be upheld.
That conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Andrea?
Gary gets to go first. Just based on this.
Mr. Zatko, did you have any questions of?
I do have a question, actually. Is it our turn, or?
No, I believe it's
Yeah,
Gary's.
I've got the order wrong. It's Mr. Zatko's opportunity first to ask any questions he has of Ms. Larson. Yes, please, so we can get it recorded.
Kelly's outlined the sales prices, converted all of that into square footage, and then converted that to assessment value. The problem I have with this whole process is pretty simple. When I looked at all the units, they have all been increased 10%.
Mr. Zatko, do you have any questions of Ms. Larson at this point in time? Your rebuttal comes next after we've asked our questions, but this is simply to ask her questions.
Why in some cases were the assessment valuations increased to $178,000 over the sales price, even though you're suggesting the adjustments are time-specific? I could find no standard pattern that so much would be increased by X percent for year one, for year two. Time adjusted when you go from $3,900 to $178,000 in the same year of 2017, it doesn't compute mathematically for me.
Right. Okay. So the time adjustments, right? Does that work? No? Sorry. I just have some time adjustments here. Answer the question if I can bring them up. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Okay, so these are the time adjustments that were used for 2018, July 1st, to get to the July 1st, 2018. So what it does is our camera system puts in all of the sales that happen every month from 2015 July, so we have 3 years of data, to December 2018. And of course, our valuation is July 1st, which is right there. So we tried, there's that blue dot up in the center, yeah, right there. And that should be at, and you can see the general upward slope of what is happening with the sales prices. So the sales are analyzed on a value, basically, through means and medians, through assessment sales prices, and they determine that these have come up in that range, and here are the actual sales price adjustments per property. So for the line, the blue line is the line we use. So you can see that in July 1st, 2018, 1.0 is your number across the board right here. That is at 100%. So any sales that are going to happen in that time frame would be at 100%. Anything else, so falling away from it, are adjusted downward, and following from it are adjusted upward. And these are the upward adjustments to 2015. The time adjustments. So that's where the time adjustments come from. They're not it's not specific to a building. These are non-residential, or I mean residential properties, sorry. And so these are 3 years worth of adjustments to get the time adjustments. So they're not something that is just, and unless there was another adjustment within it, like something transpired within a sales price, sometimes they included something, so we'll remove something, or it was discounted because of whatever reason. Sometimes there are adjustments that way, but for the most part, all of our adjusted sales are based on a time adjustment. So that's what he's referring to. Some of them are large, but that is all of the data and compiled and through the town accounting. Okay?
So
And the 10% that was there before, that it does show that the whole building went up 10% because right now it's evaluated on that value per square foot. We have a range, so your smaller ranges, this is your constant value and a value per square foot, and then there's another one as it gets larger, because something that's larger doesn't necessarily have the same value per square foot as something that is smaller. It might start off with a consistent value of, 200,000, and then as they get larger, they're not going to have the same incremental increase. So we have tables, but when we looked at the sales and you put them in, we adjust the tables upwards so that the assessments meet the sales prices. And when we did that, it was a 10% adjustment. So everybody went up the 10%. It's not that it was met and then worked away from. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Appreciate all of it. It doesn't, thank you.
Oh, okay, at this point,
I leave it in your hands. May I make one final comment?
a comment, I looked to my board members, are you all right with him making a comment at this stage? You recognize by leaving now, you are missing your opportunity for rebuttal.
I understand her logic. I don't agree with it. It's a 10% increase. The recent sales indicate 2% increase in sales value. She's used a whole bunch of data that backs all that up. That's her job.
Okay.
I disagree with the basic assumptions. The data is a 2% increase in sales, actual sales, in units in Moraine Ridge. It's not 10%. And her logic of ending up with an increase in adjusted sales price, think of this, and from $3,900 to $163,000 in the same year, doesn't make sense. Also, what happens with the adjustments in assessment
Can you stand
values,
in front of the microphone?
assessment values of $178,000 over adjusted sales price, it just doesn't make sense to me. I cannot argue with this data. I'm not the expert. I'm just telling you
Okay,
what our view is.
all right.
And I can't rebut
Okay.
all of this data. That's way beyond.
All right, I guess, I sense the board members might have some questions of Ms. Larson. You've indicated you've got to go, which is beyond our, we have no power to stop you from leaving. I guess if you're leaving now, the question to you has to be, do you feel you've had a fair opportunity for a hearing? Have you
No, I
been heard
trust you.
fair?
You've done your job. Kelly's done your job, and you've got my basic points. Nothing I could dig into. You know where I disagree with the
Okay.
approach. It's clear, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's going to defend it. So, and I can't unbundle her data and say, as an appraiser, I can
Okay.
do this better than you. All these charts, I just didn't do. I actually did a couple, but forget it.
All right.
So thank you very much.
Okay.
Kelly, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting.
Yeah.
So
Good
the-
luck the rest 2 days. And whatever your decision is
Okay.
your decision.
All right, and I think you said you've had a fair hearing, and so
Yes.
we'll continue on.
Yeah.
We have questions of Ms. Larson, and from there, I guess we'll proceed with the agenda.
Yep. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Questions of Ms. Larson? I think, Esme, you'd indicated you had some?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with the 205, 209 thing, which, the two units that were confused, so now I'm confused. But Mr. Zacco made a mention of number 205 was omitted from the comparable sales data that he received initially, but then it was included later on.
Yeah, when we provide the sales data, not always they've required 5 sales, most comparable sales. I didn't think 205 was comparable. I didn't realize it's on a different floor. Yeah, it just wasn't included in that grouping, but then later on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, and I'm not inferring that there was any intent in that.
Mhm.
And clearly, when you go to a hearing like this process, if the data had been manipulated, it would be really clear pretty quickly, I think, from the evidence.
Yeah.
So, so I'm okay with it, I guess. But I do have a sort of a general question.
Okay.
As a longtime resident and property owner, for a number of years, our assessment was, and by a number of years, I mean like maybe 20, our assessment was quite a bit under the
Right.
market value of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So could you speak to that for just a second so I can wrap my head around where it's higher and how the process can be adjusted or gets adjusted by the assessor based on the different market value that you end up with? So for instance, the one unit there was valued at over 600,000, sold for 595, I think. And there were other ones similarly.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that just a little bit to explain it to a layman?
Okay, so, and the first part of your comment that things were quite a bit lower. So I think it was 1998, 99 is when we went to market value and we were to be within 5% of market value or 10%, and then it went to 5%, and then now we've been at 100% for quite a few years now. So your goal is to be at 100% of market value, and when we look at the assessments, we look at assessment to sale ratios. So we run a report similar to this one, and it brings up the sales price and the assessment, and I say, okay, my median, when I look at all of these, is at, say, 90%, meaning that my assessments right now are 90% of what my sales prices were. But I've got 20 sales here. So then I look at that and I say, okay, these are all my comparable properties, all similar ones. I adjust them up 10%, all of them. They all now are at 100% assessment to sale ratio, which is my goal, and it's where my median is sitting at. But because we use a median, you're always going to have outliers, some up here and some down here. They've all been shifted up and down based on that median, based on the way we're supposed to do it through assessment regulations.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
That's great.
That's all your questions?
Oh, yeah.
Andrea?
I have a couple too, actually. So my first question, just on table A, is it just time adjustments? There's no further adjustments in there for?
Sales and the adjusted sale price? On these, it's time adjustments.
Just time, okay. And my second question is, given the emphasis that Mr. Zatko had put on the different levels of the building, some properties being on the top and some not, and the unit numbers, I just wanted to see whether you were still confident that your table A, the comparables that you had identified as most comparable, are the most comparable.
Well, I'm not necessarily, in my opinion now, comfortable with the assessed values per square foot necessarily on some of them, because each individual property has an adjustment. When this was done, this property was built back in 2000, I'm not too sure exactly, 2000 and what. But when it was built, the previous, it was 2008, the previous assessor would have put the assessments in, and then when he did that, he put an adjustment for view, so like 2%, and then for each floor it'd be like 1% above or 2% as we go upwards. Mr. Zatko has a 3% adjustment on his, assuming third floor, 3%. So I'm assuming if I look at the data that way, that was also what the previous assessor done. So that, to me, I think the assessment should definitely be changed. But just looking solely at the sales prices of properties, that the lowest price in 2018 alone was only $655,000. And as he compared, and that's just the sales prices. So that information I'm definitely secure with, and the square footages.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. I can't really ask you to verify Mr. Zatko's statements, but page 1 of his of C2A, the residential assessment complaint, he indicates the town of Canmore established an overall increase of mass appraisal 10% increase assessment values. Did the town direct you as the assessor to do this?
No.
No.
He states that only because I said overall in the town, there was a 10% increase.
Okay.
To letting him know in my email to him with his information that that 10% in his building was in line with what was happening in town.
So it's to be very clear then, you're an independent assessor.
Yes.
The council can't direct you to set
No.
values or anything. Okay, that's just for the record. I trust that the fact that we're sitting here today as the Assessment Review Board hearing this matter was that you and Mr. Zatko met, the complainant, sorry, met repeatedly and tried to resolve the issue and were unable to do so.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The final thing was the comment that you said he's already 10% below.
Yes, I have his assessment sheet here, but it just, I haven't, he complained last year about his assessment as well, that it was 40 plus, because in that particular area, there's an open age group for a building. One is 55 plus and one is 40 plus, and he's in the 40 plus. So they're separated. They weren't before. So they were all grouped together, and so that was part of the argument when I, last year, was that they shouldn't be grouped together, that they're different. I agreed with him and reduced it, that 10% difference across the board, and then reviewed everybody this year, and even with the sales, they went upwards. But in error, he should have had his removed. I have it flagged to be removed this year, and, but.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have any more questions.
No, I'm good.
We reached the end of the agenda with Mr. Zatko no longer present, so. I guess declare the hearing closed. No further evidence or submissions will be received by the board. Municipal Government Act requires a written decision within 30 days and gives the clerk an additional 7 days to issue the decision. So the board will make every effort to meet or beat these requirements, and the clerk will forward our decision to you, to the complainant and the respondent at the earliest opportunity. So I'll ask everybody to depart, and the board will deliberate in camera. Thank you very much.